Born in the tiny mountain town of Hazard, Kentucky in 1929, Eva Madden was adventuresome and exuberant from childhood. Nicknamed by her father, Skip, the tag stuck for a lifetime, and Eva was forever known to family and friends as Skip, a name she vehemently preferred over Eva. When the grandchildren appeared in later years, the name endured and yet evolved to Nana Skip. The youngest of the three Madden children, Skip left the mountains to attend Eastern Kentucky University, where she would meet her future husband, George Gumbert. George was pursuing a pre-medicine path, and Skip had explorative ideas of her own. Not ready to settle into conventional marriage quite yet, Skip followed in the footsteps of her older sister, Shauna, and signed up to become a flight attendant for Capital Airlines. Capital was the precursor of the modern-day United Airlines. During those days, the common term for flight attendants was stewardess, but at cutting-edge Capital, the stews were officially called hostesses. And Skip headed to Washington, D.C. to live with Shanna and become an official Capital Airlines hostess. Skip and George continued their courtship. After medical school, George conveniently took his surgery internship at Washington, D.C.'s General Hospital so the couple could be close. Returning to Kentucky as a licensed doctor, George bought his first medical practice in Olive Hill and took flying lessons at every opportunity. When George proudly called Skip in Washington to tell her his good news of the purchase of a Piper J3 Cub, Skip heartily congratulated him, then wondered aloud how he would be able to afford an airplane when he had complained he couldn't afford to get married yet. The point was well taken. A ring soon followed, and the couple was married on Halloween 1954. Skip ran the Olive Hill medical practice and began pursuit of her own pilot's license as well, racking up many hours at the tiny airstrip near Moorhead, Kentucky. Soon the couple moved to Lexington, where George opened an orthopedic practice, and Skip's flying literally took off. Flying soon consumed Skip and George's free time. They flew or relaxed at Bluegrass Field whenever possible. Skip's self-immersion in the world of flying was not limited to becoming an accomplished pilot herself. She devoted herself to all aspects of the flying world, including becoming a charter member and multi-term president in the Kentucky Bluegrass chapter of the 99s, the International Organization of Women Pilots. Besides the act of piloting an airplane, Skip developed interests in the charitable, historical, and educational aspects of flying. While the Aviation Museum of Kentucky was chartered in 1995, Skip's work with the museum began long before then. Many years of service to the Kentucky Aviation History Roundtable, the precursor of the AMK, came first. When the museum became a reality, Skip became fully engrossed in the effort. She worked to secure speakers and aviation luminaries for the quarterly historical lectures and worked tirelessly to secure financial and historical donations. Skip worked as a docent, gift shop manager, and served time on the AMK Board of Directors. And it was Skip's friendship with the late Catherine Schneider that led to the bequest to the museum from Mrs. Schneider's will. As a result of this, the museum was able to pay off the mortgage for its building. While Skip did continue volunteer service in the community outside of AMK, the museum truly became her baby. She prepared and arranged museum displays, contributed valuable historical memorabilia, and with George generously loaned aircraft such as the Crosley Moonbeam and the L-4 Cub for display. She led educational tours for school children and planned educational opportunities to further that main goal of the AMK. During the early years of the museum, Skip was the go-to person if something needed to get done or some tour needed to be covered. Rain or shine, you could count on Skip Gumbert. Her dedication and love of the museum was not lost to the people who worked around her. And while she passed on in 2003, her spirit and dedication continued to be an inspiration. One of those people who Skip inspired was Alice McCormick. Passion is the word that comes to mind when you think about how Alice McCormick enjoyed her involvement with the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. And it wasn't because she loved airplanes. As a matter of fact, she was afraid to fly. Alice was born in Somerville, New Jersey. The family soon moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where she spent most of her childhood. They returned to New Jersey in time for her to graduate from high school, then on to Rutgers University, where she earned a degree in journalism. Upon graduation, she went to work as a production coordinator at Comcast Channel 8 in Eatontown, New Jersey. That's where she would meet her husband and companion of 23 years, Jim. In 1991, Jim accepted a job in Lexington, and Alice found herself in the heart of the bluegrass. Her first job in Lexington was with the corporate training department of Long John Silver's restaurants, where she worked on creating training videos and documentation. In 1995, Jim noticed an article in the newspaper about the opening of the Aviation Museum of Kentucky at Bluegrass Airport, and they were looking for volunteers. Not a stranger to offering their talents to a good cause, both Jim and Alice showed up to lend a hand. Jim was a pilot and enjoyed the notion of being around aircraft, and Alice was first introduced to something referred to as hangar flying. A few months after the grand opening, Alice told how she felt about volunteering at the museum in a brief note that was published in the newsletter. She wrote, "I fly with white knuckles. When I get on an airplane, I always warn the person next to me. I tell them I gasp at noises and turns, at anything. Don't worry about me. So why would someone who doesn't like to fly belong to an aviation museum? Why would I volunteer at an aviation museum? It's easy. The people are friendly, the museum is interesting, and it's good for the community. But mainly I volunteer at the AMK because it's fun. My husband and I helped out the night before the museum opened. I, a stranger to the group, was greeted with friendly smiles and a staple gun. Displays were organized, mannequins were dressed, and signs were hung. Night fell as we worked, and pleasant spring breezes drifted in through the open hangar doors. So did about 1,000,000 flower petals, and the high point of my evening was sweeping under the Blue Angels plane. What an honor! We left at midnight, and we were the first to quit." Her passion for the museum had taken hold. When Long John Silver's corporate office was moved to Louisville, Alice decided to start her own company. While she enjoyed working for her numerous clients, the thing she enjoyed most was creating for the museum. From rack cards to press releases, the museum would come first. In 2000, as the museum was expanding, Alice was offered the job of executive assistant. In 2004, she moved on to the job of operations director, a position that gave her more freedom in helping to shape the museum's future. She greatly admired the achievements in the aviation history of Kentucky. Her real love, however, was for the people who had made those achievements. She kept in touch with museum members, enshrinees into the Hall of Fame, and the people in the community who had an interest promoting aviation. With her expanded interest in aviation, she was asked to serve on the board of nominations of the National Aviation Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio. "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give," and Alice was a believer in giving. She saw the museum as a place of inspiration for all who visited, and her goal was to make it the best it could be. In May of 2006, while representing the museum at an aviation conference in Washington, Alice developed what she considered was just a cold. But upon her return to Lexington and after weeks of tests, it was found she had lung cancer. For the next 14 months, she underwent a series of treatments to fight the disease. Never one to give up, she continued her daily work for the museum. She succumbed to the illness in July of 2007. She was 49 years old. Alice McCormick and Skip Gumbert worked together on every aspect of the museum, shedding blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of laughter along the way. When we look back at the people whose work has brought the Aviation Museum of Kentucky to where it is today, we cannot fail to recognize these two women and honor them with the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame's 2011 Aviation Achievement Award.